Okay. So I think we're on paragraph 2. Yes, we are. Good. You can count it all joy if you know what testing will produce. Now, if we just take that by itself, you know, if I know that there's like a huge cheesecake at the other end of this class, you know, it will be even more joyous for me. It's already joyous in its own right. Don't even go there. Don't even go there. Yeah, let's not go any further than that other than a comment, okay? So in verse 3, would somebody read that off of the screen, please?
Let patience do her thing.
Ooh.
Nope.
No, knowing this, that the training of your faith.
No, not training.
Worketh patience.
Yeah, it wasn't training. Did you say training?
Trying.
Trying. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I need to make that distinction. I wouldn't normally correct anybody's grammar or English or speaking, but sometimes it makes a difference because training and trying are different. Okay. So, Gnos Contes? Yeah. Gnos Contes.
No contest?
Yeah, it sounds like contest almost. Yeah, it's contest at the end. Yeah. As opposed to contes, which it could be if it was an eta, but it's not. It's an epsilon. So in Greek, gnoskos. Gnosko is kind of the root word, the lemma, because there's no, when it was translated into English, it was translated as K-N-O-W. K-N-O. So anyway, more of that and became knowledge. Anyway, it means to have complete understanding. A lot of what you folks are getting and a lot of what we folks, and I mean the people that have gone to school and go to church and do whatever else we do as Christian people, we know a lot. Doesn't mean that we have a lot of knowledge necessarily, because when you deal with knowledge, you also want to deal with the application, but we'll get into that when we're talking about wisdom somewhere along the line. Present tense means a continuous action of knowing. Continuous action of knowing. I think many of you probably walked into a schoolroom either in kindergarten or in first grade. And one of the things you may remember about the classroom in which you walked into which you walked, around the borders, probably pretty close to the ceiling, you had these funny little looking things called letters. You didn't know that that's what they were called. And then you saw some that had they looked like they were in pairs, but the second one looked different from the other one. Yeah. Yeah. You didn't know all that then, did you? You didn't know from an A, from a B, from a C until you started getting into cats and dogs and all them other kinds of things, right? Well, you had knowledge. Okay, there's something up there. If you had a curiosity about it, I don't know. I don't think I did. It's hard for you to imagine with my background that I didn't, but I really can't remember walking into the classroom and saying, "Oh, I wonder what those things are." No, I never did that. But at that time, we had some nuns that were prepared to show us what those letters were and what we did with them. And eventually we learned how to form words. And then one day we even learned how to form some 2-syllable words and then even 3-syllable words until we get up all the way into monosyllabic or polysyllabic. Some of these words in the Greek are definitely polysyllabic. But again, for those of you who have heard this in the past, new for you who haven't, the Koine Greek language can contain more stuff in one word than the English language is capable of doing at all. So you can take a word like gnoskontes, and it means much more than that. by the way, if you ever do start reading Greek, if you ever get lessons in it, whatever else, it's a booger sometimes to follow Greek, because they don't use subject, verb, and all those other arrangements like we have in our English language at all. Usually, not always, but usually the first words of a sentence are the most important words within the sentence, regardless of how all the other words fit. So when you take verbs and nouns and put them all together, you gotta, a lot of what you read in English in this particular syllabus is actually there's 4 letters, 4 words, but they actually start with the last word is actually the first one in the Greek and whatever else. And, I keep throwing things out about Greek because I'm always looking for a class. I always want to teach Introduction to Greek. I love it. So anyway, present tense means continuous action of knowing. Active voice means you. The subject knows. You know. Participle means this is a matter of principle. The word trying, hold on, let me find it in my thing here. Okay. Dakamian. I'm not sure. Yeah, he's got it there. Dakamian. So those are both omicrons. Dakamian means that which has been tested and approved. Faith, pisteos, means firm persuasion or confidence. You'll hear the word faith sometimes pronounced pistuo. Pistuo. Same word, different usage. Yeah, lemma, the lemmas and things like that. Okay. And then you got working, katergazatai, a little different from katergazomai. Yeah. Well, there's actually 2 or 3 words that are combined there. Katergazatai is different. It means it means the same thing. Something on the inside working its way to the outside as katergazomai. But how it relates to the other words within that particular sentence is why it's a slightly different word. Hupmanen. Is it hupmanen? Hold on a minute. Let me check my literature here. Hupmanen. I'm not seeing hupmanen. Hold on a minute. Yeah, it could be hupmane, and I'll have to check that because I'm not sure. I pulled it off as hupmane, but I may have pulled the wrong word off. Maybe I should have pulled the lemma off instead of the one that I did. Anyway, that hold on. The small print really gets to me. It means a state of cheerful abiding, patience. How many have patience? Oh, come on. Can I get at least one hand?
No.
Okay.
A lot of patience.
All right.
You raise your hand, I'll raise mine.
I like that one.
You raise yours, I'll raise mine.
I'm not going to raise it really high, like the gentleman over here. John raised his fairly higher than us, but okay. But I can guarantee, I can sneaking guarantee you that I did not have patience. In the military, we don't need patience, unless we're the recipient of the orders that are barked out at us. But if you're the barker, and I was for many years, I had lots of patience. It's just that you better snap to and obey immediately without any hesitation whatsoever, And when you hesitate, well, then you get to find out what the Uniform Code of Military Justice is all about. I used to have on my desk a publication, if you will, for lack of a better word, called the Manual for Courts Martial. And for those of you who are laughing, I know you know something about the military. The difference between a court martial and something called non-judicial punishment, I know I've spoken about that here as well. Non-judicial punishment would equate to a misdemeanor in civilian life. Okay, court martial conviction would relate to a felony. The difference. But the Manual for Courts Martial explains all the different things that you can do wrong that can get you into trouble. Sum and verse. You do this, you can expect that. Do this, you can expect that. And then we even have something called Article 134. Remember Article 134? Yeah, that's the one that says, if it ain't listed somewhere else, it's under this article. And then you go from there. That's why I made a comment about AWOL and failure to repair, because they're different articles of the UCMJ, the Manual for Courts of Martial Law. So, I don't charge extra for that knowledge there, by the way. So, let patience do her thing. 14, would somebody read that, please?
Well, let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing.
Thank you. I'm glad you got that. I said 14, but it was one. Verse 4.
They put this in feminine.
Huh?
They put this in the feminine, like, let patience have her perfect work.
Yeah. I didn't bring my computer. I didn't bring my computer, or else I would give that to you too. Understand that in Greek, okay, you have masculine, you have feminine, and you have neuter. Okay, they have nothing to do with sex at all. They have nothing to do with your whether you are male, female, or whatever. They have to do with whether the action is performed, that would be masculine. Whether the action is performed on, that would be feminine. And neuter would be you receive both. You're both the initiator and the receiver of the action.
Doesn't it have to do with something?
Right. He has his hand up a little longer than you, but hang on to the thought.
You also do that in the Spanish language.
Pardon me?
You also do that in the Spanish language.
Thank you.
These are feminine and some masculine.
Yeah, yeah. And it doesn't have anything to do with boy or girl. It just doesn't have anything to do with that. Okay, here in the middle.
Oh yeah, no.
Her.
Yeah, because sometimes in the Bible they refer when they say like her or whatnot, it means like not like Jesus or God. Like there's a lot of like let her grace be upon you or something like that.
Proverbs, her wisdom.
Yeah. It means like
Let her shout out.
yeah, like it doesn't mean like her. It means
If I remember to bring my little laptop, it's not a little one, but if I remember to bring my laptop next time, which is another thing I intended to do today, 4 questions like that.
yeah, but it's not like let him. Let her like. Let
You know,
her
I would be able to tell you a little bit more about it because I can click on a couple of buttons and I can
Yeah.
I can get Strong's numbers. I can get any one of 100 different periodicals and got thousands of bucks worth of software. I didn't pay thousands of bucks worth for it. I just have it legitimately, because I was on faculty at the college, and so every time they had a trade show or whatever.
I'm just talking, Don, do you want to look at that? That's your strong, I don't know if that helps.
No, in this context it won't, because I know how to dance through what's on my computer. So it's a program called Libronics, and that's a brand name. I don't know whether I'm allowed to even espouse that, but it's got all that stuff on it. That's how I'm able to pull off these Greek words and put them on into a package. And I am going to be putting the Greek words everywhere there is a transliteration in this particular one, but we don't have it yet. So the her and the whether it's he or what, in Hebrew they say his this and his that and his other. If you're reading, read Exodus around chapter 35 through 40, around in there when they're talking about the tabernacle and all the things that are in the tabernacle, etc., etc., etc. It's usually his this and his that and his other thing, and it's like, okay, I'm still looking up some of the words actually, because I don't know what a knop is. K-N-O-P.
And they use she a lot too, right?
Yeah.
Her a lot. They always use like she.
Yeah.
But it's not like saying like she as a woman. But
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm definitely I'm not even a student of Hebrew. I just know it's different. That's as far as I go. So, let is from the Greek word eketo. No, it's actually from eketo. More accent on the e. Eketo. Yeah. Means a command to keep on allowing patience to do her thing. Perfect is actually telaioi. Telaioi means complete, means finished. Another version of that particular, not another version, it's not the right way to say that, but I don't know exactly how to say it. Ken, you got an idea what's the word I'm looking for? Like if we have English words and we have different parts of the English words depending on whether it's past tense, future tense.
Root? I don't know.
Root, whatever else. Anyway, Jesus at the cross, I went to a couple of conventions, you might call them, that talk about the word teleios. Well, teleios is kind of the root word for perfect, complete, and that kind of stuff. And the reason they stopped going to that particular agency is because they kept saying that that's what Jesus said on the cross, that he said that word, teleios. And he did not say that word on the cross. He said tetelestai, which was a different part of that root word teleios. Tetelestai is what he said on the cross. It is finished, which is different than complete. It's different than finished by itself. It includes those other two words. Translated in English, it includes those other two words, it is finished. So, anyway, some more of that Greek that I don't get to teach people yet. Okay, the entire, hold on, let me find, okay, halakaleros, yes, halakaleros, let that one roll off your tongue. Okay. Okay, although I have it written as halakaleiroi, so that means I got to check that one out because I may have it wrong. Means sound in every part. It all works. Each individual part of it works perfectly. Lipo. I really could have gone the rest of the day without that. and hopefully the microphone didn't pick that up, but if it did, okay. It's pronounced lipo, but ironically it takes 5 Greek letters to say lipo. Means lacking. There might be a cause and effect relation to that other word that you guys just used, whoever you did that. I'll say you plural, that way not one of you has to take the rep, you know. And then nothing, Medice, excuse me. Yeah, Medice. That's why I need the Greek. Means not even one thing. Put all that together, and that's why Koine Greek is the language that works so much better. Ask and trust God for wisdom. Somebody read verse 5 there, please.
If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men, liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him.
Okay. If is what we call a first-class conditional clause for the benefit of those of you who may be new. The word if is used often. It's usually eis or ein, one or the other, and some other words as well, but generally those two. It can be more favorably translated since in many cases, but it can be translated other ways as well. This word is lipatai, means to, I'm going to find my page here, means to be deficient and desire a change. To be deficient and desire a change. I'm not very good at fixing cars or things mechanical at all. In fact, a 15-minute job for a mechanic would take me probably 3 days if I ever get it put back together again. But I usually have to have it towed to a mechanic, and then I get to pay extra because of what I screwed up in the process of trying to fix up. So I don't usually do those kinds of things. have not much expertise on that at all. But I don't care, so I'm going to stay deficient. As long as I'm able to put money in somebody's hands to fix this problem for me or to get rid of it, then I'll make those decisions at that time. But in terms of biblical knowledge, I'm deficient. I know that I've gone through the entire Bible many times. That doesn't mean anything. I'm not going to get an extra medal or something pinned on my chest, with an oak leaf cluster or anything of that nature for how many times I might have read the Bible. I specifically chose the King James because I wanted it to be difficult to read, and certainly the King James is, in my opinion, difficult for a lot of people to read, especially when you get to begats and begot, and all those other kinds of things. But even the King James Bible that you read today isn't really that. That's the one that was translated, I think, in 1661. But there's actually something called, there's a guy named Blaney that took that particular one and changed it around quite a bit to get rid of some of the language of the original King James. But it's still called King James.
You mean the 1611?
The 1611, yeah. The Blaney version was 1700 something, I forget, Ken, but
that one I don't remember. The 1611 is.
Yeah, and they're available online for those of you who have access to it, or if you have if you have a significant other or family that you go to visit, you can pull those off online. I have them on my laptop, the Blaney. For me, the Blaney's not all that hard to I mean, the original King James isn't all that difficulty, but they do things like say the word old. It's OLD in the King James that you read today, but in the original King James it was old, exactly as Ken was saying. It's like an AULD, like an Auld Lang Syne, the song. Probably only the oldsters know the Auld Lang Syne thing, but the youngsters probably don't know, but the oldsters know Auld Lang Syne. But and I won't ask anybody to raise a hand either this time. I'll let that one go. Okay. Wisdom. Yep. Well, actually, Sophios. If you're not Sophios, yeah. This is where the hold your thought. This is where the Greek makes a difference because it's actually an omicron rather than an omega. An omicron, any letter in the Greek language, the very first sound that comes out of the person's mouth who is reciting that letter is the sound of that letter. So when I say omicron, is the sound. When I say omega, O is the sound. And that's consistent through the 24 letters of the Greek alphabet. So it's Sophios. And certainly today we pretty much call ladies who are named after that, for example, Sophie.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Yes.
Because that's my cousin's name is Sophia. Or and we call her Sophie. So, and her mom was like on to Greek. So I don't know if that's what. So basically, her name means wisdom.
Well, I won't ask you whether she's wise, but yes, that's the derivation of that name. You get a name like Donald, where does it come from? I can't even find the language that it's in.
So that's pretty cool. So Sophie, so we call her Sophie or something.
Yeah.
Sophie, so
yeah.
wisdom.
And you can have fun with that too. You can say, "Oh, wise one,"
Yeah,
and see if they tumble to it, then they've already known Christians more than likely, frankly.
Yeah.
Very likely. There's a word called, in transliteration, it would be Eirine. We would say Irene in the Greek, but in English it comes out to be Irene. So somebody named Irene is whatever that quality was. I forgot what it was as I was speaking. I think it means peaceful, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
If you want to know more, I'll look it up for you and let you know. If you know somebody named Irene and you want to I'll question your motives first, and then after I'm satisfied with your motives, then I'll explain it to you. Anyway, wisdom means an understanding of how to apply knowledge to one's... Is that possessive? Oh, boy. Ken, are you a grammarian at all? What about that word ones? Would that have an apostrophe in it?
Yes.
Where?
Right after the E.
Surely. How can you have multiples of one, however? Think about that for a moment. To apply to one's circumstance, well, that's not a multiple in this case anyway. Knowledge to one's circumstance or situation. A lot of us got knowledge, you know. I can read a how-to book on changing something on my car. Well, at that moment, I have knowledge. I know you do this, you do that, and everything's fine. But then when you start taking a wrench or a screwdriver or whatever else, sledgehammer, whatever else you might choose to use, then you find out that you have knowledge maybe, but you don't have wisdom. And I don't. So that's kind of the difference to that, you know. There's a lot of people that can go around this world, and I've talked about bicycle riders and door knockers and other categories of people. They have knowledge. They have knowledge, but they don't have wisdom. If they had wisdom, they wouldn't be doing that. Either wisdom or not, or they have misunderstandings. Okay. The word ask comes from the word aitaito. Aitaito means a formal request. So in this case, that last letter there is actually an omega, so it's aitaito. Aitaito means a formal request. The implication is that the request must be made within the guidelines for prayer. Guidelines for prayer. Pretty simple. You can't go praying, Father God, hammer that Hummer for giving me such a hassle yesterday. It ain't gonna work. It's wrong. Right? So that's just one of the guidelines. You know, you can, I mean, you can do anything you want, but you shouldn't be asking God to do things that are contrary to Christianity, to knowing Christ, to knowing Jesus. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, you know, my neighbors park in places I wish they wouldn't park. You know, they block my mailbox, and then I don't get mail. You know? But, you know, I'd like to send them a little note explaining what it is. Yeah, you just grin and bear it. You know, when the post office sends me a letter, it says I have to go pick it up. I said, no, I don't, because it's not my car. But they don't have to drop off mail either. So, but I like my neighbors. My neighbors are all, mostly they're good. I live in a pretty good neighborhood. Well, in any neighborhood, it's always, the best you can get is most of them. Yes. Yeah. Now, I'm probably, frankly, on that particular neighborhood, I'm probably the worst neighbor of all. I mean, I used to want to cut grass. I used to like to do that. I don't cut grass anymore. You know, it'll die by itself. You know. And isn't that what California is aiming for anyway? Huh? You know, I got one guy on the street corner, you know, he every week he goes out there and he pulls the 6 pieces of green that are in the ground, and then he rakes the ground. I'm like, okay. Cement it, you know. Which my sister-in-law and brother, who owned the house in which I live now, before we got there, she was a freak on cement. You know, this woman wanted everything concretized. I don't know whether that's a word or not, but there's concrete all over. There's a hole big enough for a spa where it was going to be a spa, but Don Isley hasn't moved forward with that little deal. You know. Anyway, see, I can't read this without glasses, and I hate reading with. Okay, aitaito. The implication is that the request must be made within the guidelines for prayer. Upbraideth not is anaidazantos. See, now you see that word, that is O-N-E, and you're trying to say one. No, it ain't going to work that way. It's anaidazantos. Means will not cast it in your teeth, which is an idiom expressing one regretted his having asked for it. Perhaps an illustration of that would be the first time you ever ate a lemon.
Squinch up your face.
Huh?
Ever eat a lemon?
No, the first time you ever ate a lemon.
Yeah.
Remember what that was like?
Yeah. Sour.
Yeah. My daughter loves to eat lemons.
Makes you squinch your face.
My daughter just, she eats them like some people eat oranges. Huh? No, she doesn't. No, she doesn't. Ken, the salt starts to make it sweet. Yes, I get that. You know, I like watermelon with lots of salt on it, you know.
My mouth's watering.
But she eats lemons, just pops them in her mouth and just like an orange. You know, it's bad for your teeth, so there's no advertisement for that here. And when she discovered that, she didn't quite eat as many lemons as she used to eat. But anyway, note, it is important to understand that the believer may ask for wisdom and it will be given him if he asks in faith. Nowhere does the scripture say, if any man lack knowledge, many of you got one in front of you, there's the knowledge. Pick that knowledge up, open it, let it get through your eyes and into your brain, and then get understanding and go from there, and then ask for wisdom. When it says love thy neighbor, what does that really mean? It means love thy neighbor. It doesn't require a lot of expertise, but it does require a change of heart. And that's sometimes our biggest problem as Christians. In fact, I venture to say it's probably our, straight across the board, our biggest problem. We know Scripture. We know what God says. We know what Jesus wants for us. But, can't you make it a little bit easier? Can't you make it a little more palatable? Can't you make it a little bit nicer to bear? Well, no. So, anyway. We must study the Word in order to obtain knowledge, but we can pray for the ability to understand how to relate that knowledge to our circumstances. I was talking with a guy I don't even want to get any more specific than a time without citing the time, but the person was then and still is on his way out. That's my euphemism for it's pack-up time. You know, you're probably pretty much done on Earth. And a lot of times when people get the various different cancers and other kinds of diseases that they have, unfortunately, there are more cancers being cured today than ever before, but there are still some cancers that are frankly incurable. And whether this guy has that or not, when we make an evaluation of that, it's based upon what a doctor says or what several doctors say. And yet, we as Christians should never discount the miraculous. Miracles can occur. But whether they occur in a person's life or not, that's entirely up to God. It has nothing to do with the fervency of our prayers, because we can be extremely fervent in our prayers, but it's still God's will for that person's life. His wife wants very much for him to be a Christian man, and he apparently is not a Christian man. So, I was dispatched to go have a chat with him. I have more so than ever in my life, I have a propensity to utter truth. And the truth as I understand it is his name. When you die, you have one of two places you can go. You're either going to go to hell or you're going to go to heaven. That choice is up to you now. That choice is up to you a split second before you die. If you're sure of your ability to calculate exactly when that split second is, then just wait until it happens and just do it then. But most people don't get that. That's not something that is given to them. That's not something where it says you're going to die at such and such a time, Eastern Standard Time, or whatever we are out here, Pacific Standard Time. You know, and once you've done the dying part, then you are where you're going to be. You don't get a second choice. And then I asked the man, what do you fear? He says, I don't know. I fear the unknown. I said, well, stop fearing the unknown and start to find out what the known is. The known is that Jesus loves you and that he wants you in heaven. And you, in the privacy of your own heart, I don't have to hear you say these words. There's nothing magic about having a person uttering a prayer beside you and you accepting that prayer. There's no magic assigned because the person might have a credential that says pastor. There's nothing magic in that. It's just a decision. And it says, I think what you fear more than anything, is that you won't get to spend eternity with your wife. And I didn't joke with him at that time either, because it's a good opportunity for a joke. But no, he's good. He's frankly on his deathbed, you know. But he's passionately in love, and his wife is a Christian. And her agony over not wondering, but she knows. She knows what's going to happen the moment that the man passes. What none of us can know is, first of all, that somebody that says, I'm a Christian, we'll take them at their word. We have to. I mean, we should. There's nothing wrong with that. We should take them at their word that they're a Christian. But only each one of you in this room know whether you really accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior. And as long as you know that your eternal birth in heaven, B-E-R-T-H, is assured for you. Those who aren't sure, well, probably not. But I don't know. But he listened to me. And after a few minutes, he says, well, thank you, Don. I appreciate your business, but I've appreciated your visit. But it's okay if you leave now. Like, okay. Fine. I walked out of there, whatever, you know. I couldn't, you know, I wouldn't be able to arm wrestle the guy into an acceptance of Jesus.
But you planted the seed.
I'm not the only one that's ever planted that seed in this man. And that's the sad part. For now. But we don't know. Now, I may find when I get to heaven that he's there. I may think that the moment that he passes on, unless I go before him, I may think that the moment that he passes on, well, you blew that one. But even that, I can't know that. I can't know in the privacy of his own heart. He might have made that decision. But he's adamant about not telling anybody. And really, in terms of service, if you will, in terms of doing Christian things and going out and helping with Christian objectives, the man's, he'd be a saint. Well, you can't be a saint unless you're a Christian. But
Is he still alive?
Still alive, yeah. Yeah, he was, he had a major piece of surgery, and I won't describe that either, but he had a major piece of surgery, and that was the first time, between the surgeon and the oncologist, that was the first time that he and his wife were told this kind of phraseology. If the surgery is successful, no, he says, if the surgery doesn't work, you got 3 months. If the surgery does work, you got 1.5 years. Well, that's called reality. You know, and you know why the surgeon gave him that piece of information and not the oncologist. I don't know what the hierarchy of the medical fiefdom is, but that caused them to dispatch a pastor to go have a talk with him. I don't know, maybe there was another one of the pastors on staff. We got seven pastors on our staff. Maybe somebody else could have had flowery words or whatever. I don't know. I only like flowery words when I'm telling jokes and having fun. Then I use flowery words. But when it's a graven situation, and that is, you know, I'm not gonna tap dance around the issue. Anybody remember Flip Wilson, the comedian? Yeah. He used to do some shticks about death. You know, it's pretty funny when he wasn't totally ribald, but most of the time, which I enjoyed back at that time anyway. So either way, but he does those. We in the military, you know, I used to manage a base honor guard for about 5 years. An honor guard is a deal where we do things. We do parades. We go to, one of the main things we do is we help in the burial of a veteran. And depending on how many people we can get together, how much of a support we can give to that, whether we can give a 16-person contingent of GIs to go out there and help bury this person, we would do that if we could. And sometimes we can only give them 4 people, and depending on what we're able to do with them, you know. But invariably, if we had a large contingent, when we're driving away from the burial, good friend of mine, and I'll say his name, Jim Doswell, he was the jokester, and he would start joking about, you know, that how's that shtick go? Like, we are gathered here today with the dearly beloved. He was dearly and he is beloved. Remember that shtick? And then he goes on. In other words, then he uses some other language. Is dead. Well, Jim used to be able to do that. We'd laugh like the dickens. One more sidebar, and we're probably going to break right there. That's a good place to break. One more sidebar. We were doing a funeral one time, and the pallbearer, not the pallbearers, but the honor guards, 6 of us that would sometimes carry the casket. We're not really supposed to carry a casket, but every situation is different. Well, we're standing in the vestibule of the church, and there's 2 of us on either side of the entrance, and we're standing there, and then the preacher gets up and he starts out and he says like this, these are his words. He says, "We're gathered here today with this lucky family." And Ernie and I, we looked at each other and our eyes just about bugged out of our head. Turns out the guy's name was Lucky. You know, he was a full colonel. He and his wife were in a private airplane that hit power lines. You know, now personally, I think I would have reviewed the phraseology. I would have switched the sentence around a little bit. We're gathered here today with this family named Lucky, maybe. But anyway, had to end on that note. Not a somber note, because really, it's going to be great when we go. It's really going to be so fun when we get there. So on that note, we're going to stop there. We're going to start next week at an illustration of weak faith. Would someone close us in prayer, please?
All right. Our gracious Heavenly Father, I thank you for this day, Lord. I thank you for another breath of air that you've given all my brothers here to be able to wake up and dive into your word more and more. Lord, thank you for having Dawn be able to come and share with us. Lord, thank you for the food that we're about to receive. Bless the hands that prepared the meal, and just watch over all our families and take care of us as you always do. And just one more time, just thank you for just another breath of air and be alive and just ready to keep continuing to worship you, love you, and get closer to you every minute of the day. And this, I love you, Lord, so much, and I'm pretty sure all my brothers do. And thank you for everything. In your name, Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.